The stars seemed to dim as the massive Kryaxian warships tore through the fabric of space, their crystalline hulls casting prismatic reflections across the void. Like a swarm of deadly jewels, they emerged from hyperspace at the edge of humanity's home system. The fleet stretched for thousands of kilometers, each ship a masterpiece of alien engineering that dwarfed anything humans had supposedly built. Admiral Jin-Ho watched Earth grow larger on the main viewing screen of his flagship, the KES Dominance. His scaled fingers traced patterns on the arm of his command chair as he imagined how easy this conquest would be. The smug smile that played across his features was mirrored by his bridge crew. They had done this dozens of times before. Primitive weapons signatures detected in Earth orbit, his sensor officer reported with barely contained amusement. Their defense platforms appear to be using basic fusion reactors and chemical propulsion systems. Jin-Ho let out a low, rumbling laugh. How quaint. These humans have barely mastered spaceflight. Show me their pitiful excuse for a fleet. The display shifted to show Earth's orbital defenses, a scattered collection of what appeared to be hastily assembled stations and small patrol ships. Their energy signatures were weak, their hulls a patchwork of metals that the Kryaxians had abandoned centuries ago. Send the standard ultimatum, Jin-Ho ordered. Let's see how quickly they surrender. The message was broadcast system-wide in all known human languages. Submit to the Kryaxian Empire or face annihilation. The bridge crew settled in to wait for the inevitable pleas for mercy. Earth's response came faster than expected. Admiral Tai-1 of the United Earth Defense Force appeared on screen, his weathered face a mask of carefully crafted concern. "We wish to discuss terms," he said, his voice steady despite the apparent gravity of the situation. "Perhaps we could arrange peace talks aboard your vessel." Jin-Ho's second-in-command, Commander Ral, clicked his throat scales in amusement. How predictable. They don't even try to resist anymore. "Indeed," Jin-Ho replied, studying the human admiral's face. "These primitive species all follow the same pattern. They see our might, realize their insignificance, and choose submission." He turned to his communications officer. "Accept their request. Let them come grovel in person." What Jin-Ho couldn't see, hidden beneath the lunar surface thousands of kilometers away, was the true face of humanity's response. In a heavily shielded command center, Admiral Tai-1 ended the transmission and turned to his colleague, General He-Yun. The general's dark eyes gleamed in the light of countless holographic displays, showing the real state of Earth's military readiness. "They took the bait," Tai-1 said simply. "Decades of preparation. And they didn't suspect a thing." He-Yun nodded, her fingers dancing across control interfaces as she sent encrypted signals to hidden bases throughout the solar system. "The arrogance of the Kryaxians makes this almost too easy. They see what they expect to see. A young species, barely able to reach their own moon. Around them, the lunar command center hummed with carefully controlled energy. Officers and technicians moved with practiced precision, every action part of a plan refined over 50 years. Since the first Kryaxian scout ships had been detected at the edge of the solar system, humanity had been preparing for this moment. "Status of the stealth fleet?" Tai-1 asked, watching as He-Yun brought up secure feeds from throughout the system. "All ships report ready," she replied. "The Kryaxians haven't detected a single one. Their sensors are passing right through our quantum camouflage fields just as we predicted." She paused, allowing herself a small smile. "They have no idea that they're surrounded." The two leaders moved to a central planning table, where a real-time hologram showed the true disposition of Earth's forces. What the Kryaxians saw as primitive orbital platforms were actually housing the most advanced weapons humanity had ever created. The seemingly weak patrol ships were packed with technology that would make the aliens' eyes widen in disbelief if they lived long enough to understand what they were seeing. "The diplomatic team is ready," He-Yun reported. "Our best special forces operatives, disguised as bureaucrats and advisors. The Kryaxians won't detect their augmentations or hidden weapons." Tai-1 studied the deployment plot one final time. Everything was in position. The hidden fleets, the masked weapon platforms, the sleeper agents. Humanity had spent 50 years living a lie, presenting themselves as technological adolescents, while secretly preparing for this exact moment. "Send the confirmation to all commands," he ordered. "This is what we've trained for. The longest deception in human history is about to pay off." He turned to look at the lunar surface far above, imagining the Kryaxian ships beyond it. They expect peace talks. Instead, they're going to learn why you should never underestimate humanity. He-Yun transmitted the final authorization codes. Throughout the solar system, commanders received their orders and began the final countdown. The trap was set. All that remained was for the Kryaxians to spring it themselves. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Jin-Ho continued to smile, completely unaware that he and his mighty fleet were about to become object lessons in the dangers of cosmic hubris. The peace talks would begin in 12 hours. The war would start much sooner than that. The human delegation's shuttle approached the massive Kryaxian flagship with deliberate slowness, its outdated engines pulsing with visible inefficiency. From the outside, the small craft looked exactly like what the aliens expected: a hastily upgraded atmospheric vessel barely suited for space travel. Ambassador Jia Young sat perfectly still as the shuttle passed through the flagship's security fields. Her diplomatic uniform was intentionally plain, made from simple Earth fabrics that would register as entirely ordinary to alien scanners. Beneath her calm exterior, advanced neural implants processed vast amounts of tactical data, completely invisible to Kryaxian technology. "Approaching main docking bay," announced the pilot, his voice carrying just the right amount of nervous awe. Like everyone else on the shuttle, he was far more than he appeared. Behind his wide-eyed expression lay the mind of a veteran Special Forces operator. The delegation consisted of 5 members, all carefully chosen for their roles in the deception. Besides Jia Young, there was her aide, a medical officer, a cultural attaché, and a technical advisor. Each one carried hidden capabilities that would have made the Kryaxian scales stand on end if they knew the truth. Kryaxian security officers met them at the airlock, their scaled forms towering over the humans. They carried out their scans with casual thoroughness, their sophisticated equipment detecting exactly what the humans wanted them to find: simple communication devices, basic medical implements, and nervous biological signatures. "Welcome aboard the Dominance," the lead security officer said, his translator making his voice sound artificially smooth. "Please follow me to decontamination." As they walked through the crystalline corridors, Jia Young noticed how the Kryaxian crew barely glanced at them. Why should they? These were just another group of primitives coming to surrender their world. The aliens' contempt was almost palpable. Deep beneath the red sands of Mars, Colonel Sunmei sat in the heart of humanity's most advanced communication center. Banks of quantum computers surrounded her, their processing power hidden beneath kilometers of rock. She watched the delegation's progress through their encrypted neural feeds. Initiating transmission sequence, she announced to her staff. Her fingers danced across holographic controls as she composed what appeared to be a routine status update. Within the seemingly innocent message lay complex battle plans and timing coordinates, encoded in ways that only the delegation's neural implants could decrypt. "Message away," one of her technicians confirmed. Kryaxian monitoring systems read it as standard diplomatic traffic. Sunmai allowed herself a small smile. The aliens' overconfidence was their greatest weakness. They were so certain of their technological superiority that they never thought to look deeper than surface appearances. Aboard the Dominance, Admiral Jin-Ho relaxed in his private quarters, reviewing historical data on human development. The information had been carefully crafted over decades, a false timeline showing humanity stumbling toward the stars like children learning to walk. "Computer, display Earth's weapons technology progression," he commanded. The holographic display showed exactly what he expected: crude nuclear weapons, basic fusion drives, simplistic shield systems barely worthy of the name. A message flashed across his screen. Another report of strange energy readings from the Kuiper Belt. Jin Ho dismissed it with a flick of his scaled hand. Sensor ghosts, nothing more. The frozen outer reaches of this primitive system couldn't possibly hide anything threatening. Admiral, his computer announced, the human delegation has completed decontamination. They await you in the diplomatic reception chamber. Jin Ho rose, adjusting his ceremonial armor. These meetings always followed the same pattern. The primitives would make token protests, then accept the inevitable. The Empire would gain another client race, and he would add another victory to his record. In the reception chamber, Ambassador Jai Young and her team stood admiring the view of Earth through a massive crystal viewport. Their neural implants were already mapping the ship's layout, identifying key systems, and calculating optimal attack routes. The technical advisor's cybernetic eyes recorded every detail of Kriaxian technology, comparing it to the data gathered from captured scout ships. Magnificent, isn't it? Jin Ho said as he entered, gesturing toward the blue planet below. Soon it will be part of something greater, the Kriaxian Empire. Jai Young turned, offering a perfectly calibrated diplomatic smile. That's what we're here to discuss, Admiral. Earth's future. Behind her pleasant expression, she received Sun's decoded message. The fleet was in position. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Of course, Jin Ho replied smoothly. Please, be seated. Would you care for refreshments? We have attempted to synthesize some Earth beverages. As the delegation settled into their seats, appearing appropriately impressed by the aliens' hospitality, streams of data flowed through their neural networks. Attack vectors were calculated, weak points identified, and triumph probabilities updated. The Kriaxians had no idea that their every word and gesture was being analyzed by artificial intelligence systems far beyond their understanding. Outside, in the vast darkness of space, humanity's hidden fleet waited. Ships powered by technology, the Kriaxians thought impossible stood ready, their weapons aimed at precisely mapped targets. Decades of preparation were about to bear fruit. Within hours, the aliens would learn the true cost of underestimating humanity. But for now, Ambassador Jai Young simply smiled and accepted a cup of synthesized tea, playing her role in the greatest deception in human history. In the opulent conference room of the KES Dominance, Ambassador Jai Young maintained a perfect mask of polite attention as Admiral Jin Ho outlined the benefits of joining the Kriaxian Empire. The crystalline walls sparkled with embedded lights, casting rainbow patterns across the polished black table between them. It would have been beautiful if it wasn't meant to intimidate. Your people will prosper under our guidance, Jin Ho was saying, his scaled hands gesturing at a holographic display of Earth. We'll upgrade your infrastructure, modernize your technology, and bring you into a new age of advancement. Jai Young nodded thoughtfully, playing the role of an impressed primitive. Her neural implants silently processed incoming data streams, counting down to the moment that would change everything. Through her cybernetic enhancements, she could feel the pulse of communications flowing through the ship, all following predictable Kriaxian protocols, none detecting the hidden signals passing between the human delegation members. "We are most grateful for your generous offer," she replied, choosing her words carefully. "Though I must admit, some of our people have concerns about losing their autonomy." The Admiral's laugh was condescending. "My dear Ambassador, you'll have all the autonomy you need, within reasonable limits, of course. We're not conquerors. We're mentors to developing species." Deep in the Kuiper Belt, Lieutenant Sangmin floated in the command center of what appeared to be an abandoned research station. The Kriaxians had scanned it dozen times, seeing only a derelict hulk of primitive human engineering. They never detected the quantum computers hidden in its core, or the advanced stealth systems masking the true nature of the facility. "Signal strength optimal," his AI assistant reported. "All fleet elements acknowledge ready status." Sangmin's fingers danced across holographic controls, initiating the most complex military operation in human history, transmitting final authorization codes now. May our ancestors watch over us." The signal rippled outward at faster-than-light speeds. Carried by technology the Kriaxians thought impossible. Throughout the solar system, human ships began powering up their true systems. Stealth fields that had hidden them for months prepared to drop. Weapon systems warmed silently, their energy signatures still masked by advanced quantum camouflage. Back on the flagship, Du Hyun stood at perfect attention behind Ambassador Jae-dong, playing the role of a simple security chief. His chronometer counted down in his enhanced vision. 3 minutes until humanity showed its true face. His implants were already mapping optimal attack routes through the ship, identifying key systems that would need to be neutralized. "Perhaps a demonstration would ease your concerns," Jin Ho offered, completely unaware of the storm about to break. He gestured, and a new hologram appeared, a Kriaxian warship firing on a primitive defense station. "This is from our last integration operation. See how quickly the target was disabled. We take great care to minimize damage and casualties." Jae-young forced herself to flinch at the display of firepower, while her neural systems calculated exactly how many seconds it would take to disable the flagship's main weapons. "Most impressive," she managed, letting her voice shake slightly. 2 minutes remaining. Throughout the conference room, the other delegation members maintained their carefully crafted poses of nervous attention. Each was a masterpiece of deception, their apparent anxiety masking perfect combat readiness, their simple clothes hiding advanced battle suits, their trembling hands concealing weapons that could cut through Kriaxian armor like paper. "Your world will barely feel the transition," Jin Ho continued, his voice smooth with practiced reassurance. "We've done this many times before. A small show of force, a graceful surrender, and then we begin the integration process." 1 minute. In the Kuiper Belt, Sangmin sent the final confirmation signal. Across the solar system, thousands of human warriors tensed in anticipation. Ships that had played the role of primitive vessels for months prepared to reveal their true nature. Weapon platforms disguised as simple satellites oriented toward their pre-calculated targets. "Tell me, Admiral," Jae-young said, buying these last crucial seconds, "how many species have you integrated this way?" Jin Ho's chest swelled with pride. "Yours will be our 23rd client race. Each one now prospers under our wise guidance." 30 seconds. Du Hyun's hand drifted casually toward his ceremonial belt sash, a gesture of nervous fidgeting to Kriaxian eyes, but in reality moving into position to draw his concealed quantum blade. "And none have ever resisted?" Jae-young asked, letting her voice carry just the right note of resignation. "Some tried, in the beginning," Jin Ho admitted, "but they quickly learned the futility of." The Admiral's words were cut off as every light in the conference room flickered. For just a moment, the holographic displays wavered, showing ghostly images of massive fleet formations appearing from nowhere. "What is this?" Jin Ho demanded, rising from his seat. "Some kind of power fluctuation." Jae-young smiled, but this time it wasn't the diplomatic mask she'd worn until now. This was the expression of a predator whose trap was about to spring. "No, Admiral," she said as her neural implant confirmed 0 hour. "This is humanity showing you why you should have scanned more carefully for sensor ghosts." The golden shields of the KES dominance rippled like water, flashing with unexpected patterns of energy. In the ship's main engineering section, alarms began to sound as systems reported inexplicable failures. The Kriaxian engineers rushed to their stations, their scaled hands flying over control panels as they tried to understand what was happening. Security Officer Min-ki, who the Kriaxians knew only as a meek junior diplomat, stood quietly in a corner of the conference room while his neural implants executed attack algorithms developed from decades of studying crashed Kriaxian scout ships. Through the ship's own communication networks, he inserted carefully crafted code sequences that turned the aliens' defensive systems against themselves. "Admiral," a panicked voice came over the ship's communications, "we're detecting massive energy fluctuations throughout the fleet. The shield harmonics are destabilizing. Jinho's eyes widened as he turned from the conference table, his previous smugness replaced by growing concern. Impossible. Run a diagnostic on the sensor arrays. This must be a malfunction. But it wasn't a malfunction. Across the vast expanse of space surrounding the Kryaxian fleet, reality itself seemed to bend and twist. Massive distortions appeared in the void, like ripples in a cosmic pond. The Kryaxian sensor operators stared in disbelief as their instruments reported the impossible. Multiple spatial anomalies detected. The sensor chief shouted, his scales standing on end. Something's coming through. By the Empire, there are hundreds of them. Like ghosts becoming solid, human warships materialized from the darkness. Their hulls were not the primitive metal constructions the Kryaxians had observed in orbit around Earth. These vessels were sleek, dangerous, and powered by technology that should have been centuries beyond human capability. Aboard the UES Retribution, Captain Yujin stood on her command deck, watching as the stealth fields dropped across the entire human fleet. The massive battleship had been hiding in plain sight for months, disguised as nothing more than a sensor shadow. Now its true form was revealed, a weapon of war that represented the pinnacle of human military achievement. All ships report ready, Captain, her tactical officer announced. The Kryaxian shields are compromised. We have targeting solutions on all primary vessels. Yujin took a moment to appreciate the poetry of the moment. The aliens had come expecting to find sheep, only to discover they had walked into a wolf's den. Send the fleet-wide order, she commanded, her voice steady and clear. All ships, weapons free. Show them humanity's real capabilities. Across the solar system, human warships opened fire with weapons that had been carefully hidden for decades. Quantum-tipped missiles phased through the weakened Kryaxian shields. Gravity lances twisted space itself to tear through crystalline hull plating. Beam weapons operating on principles the aliens had never imagined carved through their fleet's formation. On the Dominance's bridge, chaos erupted as damage reports flooded in from all quarters. Multiple hits across the fleet. Someone shouted, "We've lost contact with the entire rear guard." Admiral Jinho stared in horror at his tactical displays, watching as ship after ship reported critical damage. The human vessels moved with impossible precision, their attacks coordinated with devastating effectiveness. Every weakness in Kryaxian ship design, every blind spot in their defensive systems, was being systematically exploited. "This can't be happening," he whispered. "Their technology. They're barely out of their gravity well." Ambassador Jai Young stood from the conference table, her diplomatic persona discarded like an old coat. "Did you really think," she asked calmly, "that we would show you our true capabilities before we were ready?" Around her, the other members of the delegation moved with practiced efficiency. Hidden weapons appeared in their hands as they secured the conference room. Du Hyun, the supposed security chief, activated his battle suit, the simple uniform morphing into advanced combat armor. Outside the flagship, the battle unfolded with mechanical precision. Every move had been planned, every contingency accounted for. The human fleet had trained for this moment in hidden shipyards throughout the solar system, perfecting tactics specifically designed to counter Kryaxian technology. Captain Yujin watched from her command deck as the carefully orchestrated attack proceeded exactly as planned. "Target their command and control nodes," she ordered. "Don't let them coordinate a response." The Retribution's main gun spoke, sending lances of concentrated energy through space. Where they struck, Kryaxian ships split apart, their supposedly invulnerable hulls proving vulnerable to weapons they had never imagined facing. "Send word to the Mars defense grid," Yujin commanded. "Tell them to commence Phase 2. It's time to show the Kryaxians exactly what those primitive orbital platforms can really do." The first strike had been delivered. Now the real battle would begin, and the galaxy would learn that humanity had never been the easy prey the Kryaxians imagined. Space around Earth transformed into a deadly light show as human ships danced between Kryaxian vessels like deadly shadows. The human vessels moved in ways that defy the aliens' understanding of physics, their engines leaving trails of blue fire across the void. What had appeared to be clumsy, primitive ships now executed maneuvers that made the Kryaxian crews dizzy just watching them. Commander Hai-Jin led her team through the crystalline corridors of the Dominance, their footsteps eerily silent thanks to sound-dampening technology built into their combat suits. The Kryaxian security teams they encountered learned too late that their armor was useless against weapons reverse-engineered from their own crashed vessels. Team 2, breach point ahead, Hai-Jin whispered into her neural comm. Her squad moved like ghosts, their supposedly primitive weapons slicing through Kryaxian defense barriers as if they were made of paper. Remember, we need the command center intact. A group of Kryaxian warriors rounded the corner, their scales bristling with combat drugs. They raised their weapons, expecting an easy victory against primitive humans. Instead, Hai-Jin's team dropped them in seconds, quantum-edged blades cutting through their advanced armor like it wasn't even there. On the bridge of the Dominance, Admiral Jin-Ho gripped his command chair as another explosion rocked the massive ship. The tactical display showed his proud fleet being systematically torn apart by weapons that shouldn't exist. "Admiral!" his sensor officer screamed. "The Earth orbital platforms, they're changing." Jin-Ho watched in horror as the seemingly primitive defense stations surrounding Earth began to transform. Panels slid away revealing massive weapon arrays. What they had dismissed as basic communication dishes unfolded into targeting systems more advanced than anything in the Kryaxian arsenal. The first station fired, its mass accelerator weapon launching a projectile at a significant fraction of light speed. The round passed through 3 Kryaxian ships before they could even register the attack, leaving perfect holes in their crystalline hulls. Secondary explosions bloomed in the silence of space as the ships broke apart. Reinforcements arriving. Someone shouted, hope in their voice. Through the fleet's quantum communication network, Jin-Ho could sense the arrival of his reserve force, 200 ships of the line, more than enough to crush any primitive resistance. The reinforcement fleet tore out of hyperspace, weapons charged and ready to defend their comrades. But instead of finding easy targets, they emerged face to face with a wall of human warships that simply appeared from nowhere, their stealth systems dropping to reveal vessel designs that should have been centuries beyond human capability. "Impossible," Jin-Ho whispered, watching as his reinforcements were caught in a deadly crossfire. "They can't have mastered faster-than-light technology. Their first fusion drives were barely a decade ago." In the lead human vessel, Admiral Ta-1 coordinated the assault with cold precision. Years of preparation were paying off as human ships executed battle plans designed specifically to counter Kryaxian tactics. Every weakness discovered from studying their technology, every flaw in their battle doctrine, was being exploited with surgical precision. Back on the Dominance, Hai-Jin's team reached their primary objective, the ship's main engineering section. The Kryaxian engineers turned in shock as the humans appeared seemingly from thin air, their stealth suits deactivating for close combat. "Secure the quantum core," Hai-Jin ordered. "Don't let them initiate any overload sequences." Her weapons specialists moved quickly, using interface tools developed from years of studying Kryaxian technology to lock down the ship's power systems. Outside, the battle had become a slaughter. Human ships moved in perfect coordination, their advanced targeting systems predicting and countering every Kryaxian maneuver before it could be completed. The aliens' supposedly superior technology proved useless against weapons specifically designed to defeat it. Earth's orbital defense grid continued its devastating barrage. Each station fired in sequence, their mass accelerator rounds threading through the chaos of battle with impossible accuracy. Kryaxian ships died by the dozen, their mighty shields useless against weapons that simply ignored them. Admiral Jin-Ho stared at his tactical displays in despair as more human ships appeared from stealth, boxing in his remaining forces. Everything he thought he knew about human capabilities had been a lie. These weren't the actions of a primitive species. This was the carefully planned execution of a trap years in the making. Status of the fleet, he demanded, though he already knew the answer. 40% destroyed. His tactical officer reported, scales pale with shock. Another 30% heavily damaged. The humans are targeting our command and control systems with precision we've never seen before. Another explosion rocked the flagship as Hyjin's team completed their mission in engineering. Throughout the massive vessel, critical systems began shutting down as human control software overrode Cryaxian security protocols. The space around Earth had become a graveyard of crystalline ships, their broken hulls reflecting the light of weapons that should never have existed. The mighty Cryaxian fleet, terror of a dozen star systems, was being systematically dismantled by an enemy they had fatally underestimated. The bridge of the UES Retribution thrummed with controlled power as Captain Yujin studied the tactical displays showing the trapped Cryaxian fleet. Her ship's quantum computers processed battle data in real time, coordinating with hundreds of other human vessels to maintain the perfect trap they had sprung. Mars base, this is Retribution, she transmitted, her voice steady despite the chaos of battle around them. Colonel Sunmai, are you ready to initiate Phase 3? Deep beneath the red Martian soil, Colonel Sunmai's fingers danced across holographic controls in the heart of humanity's most advanced command center. Affirmative, Captain. Override codes are primed and ready. The Cryaxians won't know what hit them until it's too late. Years of studying crashed Cryaxian scout ships had given humanity intimate knowledge of their FTL drive systems. Every attempt to escape would play right into their hands. Sunmai initiated the broadcast sequence, sending carefully crafted command codes through the quantum network. Across the battlefield, Cryaxian ship captains frantically tried to engage their hyperdrives, desperate to escape the devastating human assault. Instead of jumping to safety, their engines responded to human commands, shutting down or activating at random. Some ships found themselves jumping near kilometers, others couldn't engage their drives at all. By the Empire, a Cryaxian commander shouted as his ship's systems betrayed him. They've compromised our core technology. How is this possible? On the bridge of the Dominance, Admiral Jinho sat in his command chair, his scaled features frozen in shock as Ambassador Jaidam approached. Gone was the meek diplomat who had seemed so impressed by Cryaxian technology. In her place stood a hardened military commander, her neural implants giving her real-time updates on the battle raging around them. "You know, Admiral," she said, her voice carrying the weight of decades of preparation, "we recovered our first Cryaxian scout ship 50 years ago. Did you really think we'd just let such valuable technology go to waste?" Jinho's throat scales flattened in distress as he watched another group of his ships fail to escape. "This is impossible," he whispered. "You're primitives, barely space-capable." Jaiyun laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's exactly what we wanted you to think. Every piece of primitive technology you saw was carefully crafted to deceive. Every bumbling attempt at spaceflight was choreographed. We studied your people, your tactics, your technology, all while making sure you saw exactly what you expected to see." Around them, the bridge crew lay unconscious or restrained, subdued by the human special forces team that had fought their way up from the conference room. Du-hyun stood at the tactical station, his combat armor now fully visible as he accessed the flagship's systems. "Admiral," he reported, "I've locked out all command functions. The fleet can't receive orders from the flagship anymore." In space, the battle had become a rout. Human ships moved with deadly grace, their advanced weapons tearing through Cryaxian defenses that had never been designed to stop them. The orbital defense platforms continued their devastating barrage, each shot calculated to cause maximum damage with minimal collateral effect. Captain Yujin watched from the Retribution as another group of Cryaxian ships tried to flee, only to have their drives lock up under human control. "Signal the Mars defense grid," she ordered. "Time to show them the rest of our surprises." Massive weapon arrays emerged from the red planet's surface, installations that had been hidden from Kriaxian scans by technology decades ahead of their detection capabilities. The arrays powered up, creating a web of energy that trapped the alien fleet in place. Back on the Dominance's bridge, Young stepped closer to the defeated admiral. "Perhaps," she said, her voice carrying just a hint of the same condescension he had shown earlier, "we should discuss different terms. Your surrender, for instance." Jinho looked up at her, seeing for the first time the true face of humanity, not the primitive species he had come to conquer, but a race that had outmaneuvered his people at every turn. "How?" he asked simply. "How did you hide all this?" "Patience," Young replied. "Dedication. And the knowledge that someday, someone like you would come to our system, expecting an easy conquest." She gestured to the tactical displays showing his ruined fleet. "We've spent 50 years preparing for this day, Admiral. Every ship you see out there was built specifically to counter your technology. Every weapon was designed to exploit weaknesses we found in your systems." The Admiral slumped in his chair as the full magnitude of his defeat became clear. His mighty fleet lay in ruins, picked apart by weapons he hadn't even known could exist. His reinforcements were trapped, their advanced technology turned against them by an enemy that had spent decades studying how to defeat it. "Signal your remaining ships," Young commanded. "Order them to stand down, unless you prefer to see what else we've been hiding all these years." Light from Earth's sun glinted off the crystalline hulls of the surrendered Kriaxian fleet as they hung motionless in space, their weapons powered down and shields disabled. Surrounding them, human warships maintained a precise formation, their advanced weapons still trained on the alien vessels. The mighty armada that had arrived to conquer Earth now floated helplessly, trapped by technology they hadn't believed possible. In the Grand Conference Chamber of Lunar Command, Admiral Tawan stood before the assembled Kriaxian representatives. The alien scales had lost their usual luster, their proud bearing diminished by the magnitude of their defeat. Behind them, a massive window offered a perfect view of their humble fleet. "For 50 years, Tawan announced, his voice carrying easily through the hushed chamber, humanity has prepared for this day. Since we recovered your first scout ship from the Siberian wilderness, we knew others would come. We studied your technology, learned your tactics, and built our forces specifically to counter them." The Kriaxian diplomats shifted uncomfortably as holographic displays activated around them, showing the true extent of human military power. Hidden shipyards throughout the solar system emerged from stealth fields. Massive weapon platforms appeared in orbit around Mars and Venus. Defense installations that had been invisible to their most advanced scanners revealed themselves. General Young, formerly known to them as Ambassador Young, stepped forward. Her diplomatic robes had been replaced by a formal military uniform, bearing the insignia of Earth Strategic Command. "Everything you thought you knew about us was carefully crafted deception," she explained. "Our primitive ships, our basic weapons, our seemingly limited understanding of space travel, all designed to make you underestimate us." The lead Kriaxian diplomat, his scales now a pale shade of gray, found his voice. "But the energy signatures, the technology level we observed, all fake," Young replied with a slight smile. "We've had quantum computing for decades. Our stealth systems were generations ahead of your detection capabilities. Every time you scanned Earth, you saw exactly what we wanted you to see." On screens around the chamber, footage played showing human ships emerging from hidden bases throughout the solar system. Vessels that had appeared primitive and clumsy now moved with deadly grace, their true capabilities no longer concealed. Deep within Mars Command, General Yun stood at her control station, transmitting coded signals to human forces hidden throughout nearby star systems. The victory signal rippled outward at faster-than-light speeds, telling Earth's concealed fleets that the time for hiding was over. "Phase 1 is complete," she announced to her staff. "Our forces in the Alpha Centauri system are revealing themselves. The Kriaxian colonies there are already requesting terms of surrender." The news reached the lunar conference chamber, causing another wave of shock among the Kryaxian representatives. Their empire's nearest outposts were already falling to human forces that had been hiding in plain sight for years. "You should know," Taiwan informed them, "that we've had faster-than-light capability for over 30 years. While you watched our primitive chemical rockets, our real ships were mapping your territory, positioning our forces, and preparing for this moment." Outside, the surviving Kryaxian ships began their humiliating departure from Earth space, each one escorted by human vessels that had once pretended to be harmless satellites or debris. Their crews watched in stunned silence as more of humanity's hidden infrastructure revealed itself: shipyards, defense platforms, and weapon systems that rewrote everything they thought they knew about technological development. "Your empire's representatives will be expected at Earth within one standard month to discuss terms," Jia Young informed the diplomats. "We trust you'll find our conditions reasonable. After all, we've had 50 years to consider them." As the Kryaxian delegation departed, their proud empire now facing a power they had fatally underestimated, humanity's leaders gathered in the lunar observation deck. They watched their former would-be conquerors retreat, their mighty fleet reduced to a scattered convoy of damaged ships. "Send word to our deep space units," He-Yun ordered. "It's time for Phase 2. Let's show the galaxy that humanity is here to stay." The message spread across known space like a wave. Earth was not the primitive backwater everyone had assumed. Humanity had emerged from its chrysalis, not as a newborn species stumbling into the galactic community, but as a fully formed power that had been waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. In the years that followed, other alien civilizations would remember the lesson learned by the Kryaxian Empire: underestimate humanity at your own peril, for beneath their seemingly primitive exterior might lie capabilities beyond your darkest nightmares. The age of human deception was over. The age of human dominance had begun.